People lose track of time because they're so fully absorbed by what they're doing. They tend to perform exceptionally well at an attention external high performance state. That is commonly known as a flow state. How about we just define it? It's a state where you're fully absorbed doing something that you are skilled at doing, and your attention is on the external world and on the actual act of doing whatever it is that you do well. In that state, often people lose track of time because they're so fully absorbed by what they're doing. They tend to perform exceptionally well at whatever they're doing on the external world. So there's no inner dialogue, there's no self-talk when they're in a flow state, and they're not thinking about themselves. There's no self-reflection. So there's a lack of self-consciousness when people are in a flow state.
Hi there, welcome to the replay of our after hours discussions with professional coaches. Your exclusive complimentary Sunday session for all of our community around the world, where coaching minds unite with our people to create real world results. I am Adrian Cahill, your host and founder of the Motivate community, and more recently, Monday Morning Motivation. As a global trainer in NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, coaching, and hypnosis, this weekly gathering brings some of my colleagues from trainings, my fellow students and coaches all together in one place where we can discuss, share, help change the world by delivering free, quality information that's here to help you transform.
Okay, why don't we start? So welcome. This is a session, it's part of a series on strategies of genius. Now, before I go into it, based on something that Adrian said earlier about how NLP's being incorporated into all sorts of different areas of life, including a lot of trainings, corporate trainings, business trainings. And they're not mentioning NLP. So just as an example, I watched and listened to a podcast on the weekend on some people who have a startup that are revolutionizing how they teach children. So they can get the academic side of things down to 2 hours a day. They've got a number of schools working already, and they're getting incredibly high scores. This is in the US. And so I listened to it, this rather long podcast, and somebody asked a question about visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. Now, of course, where did that come from? NLP, and the question was a distortion of what we found in NLP. It's not that people are visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. It's that a person may have a preference in a particular situation. So it depends on the context that you're in. So if you're offered a concert, well, it's probably a good idea to have an auditory preference. Let's say you were at the opera, then maybe visual and auditory, or at a movie, visual and auditory. So it all depends on the context that you're in. If you're playing a sport, you want to engage your kinesthetic system, of course, to play a sport. And I thought, well, it's certainly gone mainstream. And fortunately, the people who run the education startup corrected the questioner, which I thought was very good. The fact that when you're teaching, you want to use all senses, and that preference varies depending on context. The other thing they brought up, which was really surprising, is something that we've incorporated into our trainings, cognitive load theory. And I was really impressed when they started talking about cognitive load theory. So, which I won't go into, but it's very important for learning. This is based on the strategies of genius, the patterns of genius are patterns that were found by Dr. John Grinder, who's the co-creator of NLP. And these are patterns that he found um, through working with and modeling a number of geniuses. So I want to, first of all, reference John Grinder. And if you want to read a book where these patterns are covered, there's a book called Turtles All the Way Down, a subtitle Prerequisites to Personal Genius by Judith Delosier and John Grinder. And it's an excellent book. It's a transcript of, I think it was a 3 or 4 day seminar. And it's not made explicit, but the patterns, he covers these patterns of genius in various ways, different ways over the 3 or 4 days. So he might carry some of the patterns inside stories, and then in other times he's got exercises, which is just a brilliant book. So these are the key patterns that Grinder and Delosier, my apologies, discovered. The common patterns are people of genius are able to represent, richly represent outcomes in their minds. So this is more than ordinary goal setting. We're actually going to how do you go about representing using pictures, sounds, and sensation, multiple senses, what we call representational systems. The ability to use multiple perceptual positions. And very briefly to sum that up, most of the time we operate at what we call first position. It's the position of the self. It's looking out of your eyes, listening out of your ears, feeling through your body, and that's home base. The third position is the position of an outside observer, as if you were observing yourself, what you would see, hear, feel, observing yourself. A very important perceptual position. It gives you information about context. And if you're in a relationship with somebody, if you're examining yourself in relationship to somebody else, it gives you information about relationship, about how the two people are relating. Second position is the position as if you're walking in the shoes of another person. And those are the 3 perceptual positions. I won't go into that in depth at the moment. We did a whole session on a previous patterns of genius a few weeks ago on perceptual positions. The ability to construct visual images. I think my favorite example is Nikola Tesla. And I've got a little quote from a biography. He would construct mental representations, visual representations of electric motors and electric generators. He would construct them in his mind first, then he would draw it out into blueprints and have the engineers build it. But it all started up here. You create this mentally visual imagery. I had phenomenal ability to the extent there's a famous story where he designed an engine in his mind and had the engineers then build it, and then he ran the mental one for 3 months, deconstructed it, noticed the areas of wear and tear, documented it all, stuck it into a safe. Somebody else had the key. It was all sealed in a letter with a seal as well, and an envelope with a seal. And then they turned on the physical built motor and ran that for 3 months. At the end of the 3-month period, they deconstructed the actual motor, documented all the areas of wear and tear. Then they opened up the safe, broke the seal and the envelope, and pulled out the report, and it was a matched report. So he had an incredible ability to build very precise mental images. So I thought that's interesting, just an interesting example.
And then you could say Leonardo da Vinci had some similar patterns with his visual imagery.
That's right. And what I like about Leonardo da Vinci was he was both a scientist and an artist. A lot of people see those things as being quite separate, and he was no doubt he was a genius. Um,
Chris, I feel like you might be moving on, but I just want to mention as well that the ability to construct visual images, our ability to do that perhaps as humans goes down as we watch more and more TV, or as especially with pornography and these kind of things, right? It reduces the visual imagery, and with children, I think they're losing a lot of their visual ability. So I like to give my kids games to remember what they see and remember
yeah,
lists and the memory strategies, the spelling strategies. In our NLP, we've got a lot of skills that actually increase and train more skill with our visual sense.
yeah. I don't know. I've got a question mark about that. Um, in that, and then we'll move on. But very briefly, if I said to you, can you imagine in your mind uh, a representation of DNA, a double helix, a DNA molecule, sorry, a DNA double helix, okay? It's made of a number of different molecules, of course. Can you imagine that? And now can you imagine it rotating anti-clockwise? Now, a lot of people can do that nowadays. And I think that people of my generation, which I won't name, my generation, but anyway, people of my generation, we were young adults before there was a lot of special effects. So the special effects were pretty expensive and difficult to do. And then along came computer generated special effects. And I remember seeing an advertisement where they had some image flying in, coming close, coming forward at the screen, becoming larger, and things like that. So if I said to you, just imagine an image the size of a postage stamp off in the distance, and then just imagine it moving forward, becoming closer to you and getting closer and larger at the same time. And most of you can do that nowadays. But I think a lot of people in my generation would have before a lot of modern special effects would have found that more difficult because they haven't had the reference to some of these things that you can do in terms of mental manipulation of visual imagery. So I do wonder about that. As far as I'm concerned, the jury is out, but certainly we can develop our ability to use visual imagery.
For Jasmine and Chico Death, if you guys haven't seen it, sometimes we do really fast stuff. It's not always fast, right? But sometimes we do some fast moves, and you might see it in hypnosis or something. One particular thing well known in our work is manipulating the images so that if someone is addicted to something, or if someone keeps eating hamburgers, because hamburgers, like the McDonald's hamburger, looks so good. So we might manipulate the image, turn it black and white, make it really small.
Yeah.
Bit more complicated than that, but that's part of the skill set we have is manipulating visual images to help people actually get over some of that stuff.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things about Tesla, as a child, he had phenomenal visual recall. His visual memory was phenomenal. It's what's known in psychology as eidetic memory, is the term they use in psychology, eidetic memory. And what he would do, he had trouble getting to sleep at night because he would replay these visual movies, these accurate visual movies of what had happened during the day and how he managed, and it was not under his conscious control. So these movies would just run. I don't know if anybody's had this experience where you're running some event that happened during the day, but you can't switch it off. It's just running automatically. So we say it's running unconscious. It's run by the unconscious, and the unconscious mind, that is. And so what he did, he started constructing images, and that's how he developed the ability to consciously manipulate images, and that enabled him then to be able to sleep. So he developed that ability as a child as a way of getting control over his visual recall, visual imagery, memory, so he could sleep. Interesting. So sometimes through challenges, we develop skills. Now, I just wanted a summary of this, and then I'm going to put a question to everybody in terms of what you would most like to look at tonight. So the ability to use the as if frame. So if I said to you, can you imagine something you want for yourself? Can you do that? Maybe just nod if you've done that. Now, I'd like you to act as if you can step into that future, that image in your mind, as if you're in the future where you have actually achieved that outcome. Can you do that? Nod if you've done that. Okay. So what that is, we're using an as if frame. If I say to you, act as if you're in the future where you have your outcome, we call that an as if frame. Can you imagine what it'd be like if you were a person living in Victorian times, and from that position, as if you were a Victorian, how today's world would seem to you? So there, I've used the as what we call the as if frame again, act as if, and children do this. A lot of children play dress up and pretend. They play pretend when they're children. That's an as if frame. If you imagine as if you were in the past seeing today's world, that's an as if frame. If you put yourself in the future where you have your outcome looking back on today, acting as if you're in the future looking back, that's an as if frame. So it's the ability to, it helps people to shift time frames or perspective with time. But you could also act as if you're somebody else. So if you had a particular outcome that's really important to you, some major outcome, and having achieved that, placing yourself in the future where you have that, I like you to imagine a friend next to you, a very good friend who would support you in having that outcome. Now, what would it be like from your friend's position? Can you imagine what it's like as if you were your friend, and what you would like to say to yourself having achieved that outcome? Get the idea? That's where you could act as if you're somebody else. So Einstein imagined as if he was riding a photon of light. And that's part of how he came up with the theory of relativity. It was a thought experiment where he imagined as if he was riding a photon of light, and what his perception would be like if he was a photon. That's an as if frame. Now, the sensitivity to communications from their unconscious minds, in other words, intuition. And we've got patterns for developing your intuition, working with your intuition, working with your unconscious. There's something called chunking, how to chunk up, down, and sideways. This is really a way of organizing information into what we call different logical levels. And the last thing we have here is the ability to enter into an attention external high performance state. That is commonly known as a flow state. Now, what we've talked about on previous sessions, we went into some depth on representing outcomes and also perceptual positions. So I was thinking what we could do tonight as a focus for tonight's patterns, we could focus on constructing visual images as one possibility. Working with the unconscious mind, your intuition could be another. And the other is how do we go about developing, accessing and activating flow states, high performance, externally attentive high performance states, also known as flow states. So can I get some idea what would be of most interest to people tonight?
How cool is that? Choose your own adventure. How about you write in the chat window or share it out? Pick one.
I think right in the chat window would be great because that way we've got a measure on this. Okay, we've got 2 for high performance states so far. Do we have anything else?
I have a demonstration for that if you do that.
Okay, fantastic. So that's one possibility. Just see if there's everybody's got an opportunity to make a suggestion. So either flow states, how do we develop and refine our visual representation, ability to construct images, or how do we go about working with the unconscious in terms of signals, in terms of intuition? Okay, now, thank you, Jasmine. Oh, thank you. I would typically only do mental images. Okay, so Jasmine, you use what? Well, most people, we use all three. We represent things visually, auditorily, we can recall or construct sound, and we can also reactivate kinesthetically, kinesthetics in terms of sensation. We can feel things. And so, yes, we use all of them, I would say. Any other votes? Well, we've only had a couple. Well, why don't we do high performance flow state, shall we? How's that? How to go about activating them? Okay. So, okay, where do we start? Okay. I would hope most of you have had this experience already. Have you been in the flow state? How about we just define it? It's a state where you're fully absorbed doing something that you are skilled at doing, and your attention is on the external world and on the actual act of doing whatever it is that you do well. In that state, often people lose track of time because they're so fully absorbed by what they're doing. They tend to perform exceptionally well at whatever they're doing, and their attention is fully on the external world. So there's no inner dialogue, there's no self-talk when they're in a flow state, and they're not thinking about themselves. There's no self-reflection. So there's a lack of self-consciousness when people are in a flow state. So can I get a show of hands? I hope people know how to do a show of hands in Zoom. So if have you experienced this? Or comment as well. Feel free to comment. So Jasmine, okay, Chico, anybody, Kylie, okay. So you've had this experience. Hey, would you like to have this on tap? Have it when you want it. Okay.
I like it in different contexts, yeah.
Excuse me?
I'd like it in different contexts.
Oh, well, okay. So in that case, why don't we talk about how to get a flow state, how to create it, how to reactivate it, and then how to apply it to some context where you want to lift up your performance. How's that? Okay, we can do that. So now in NLP, in the new code of NLP, which is the type of NLP we do, we're very influenced by John Grinder, who's a good friend of ours. There are three formal exercises, really they're activities that build flow states. We've got something called the alphabet game that will build a flow state. We have something called the NASA game, and we have a ball game. All three of them can be used to build a flow state. What Grinder refers to as a content-free high-performance state. Now, I saw Adrian doing some juggling. Juggling will build a flow state with the addition of one more feature that's not commonly found in juggling, one extra thing he needs, and that will build a flow state. Now, very briefly, let's talk about what all these games, including juggling, have in common. All the activities, all these activities, are really four of them, as if we count juggling, stimulate peripheral vision. So you're using two things: foveal vision, which is your focus vision, and also something that stimulates peripheral vision. And juggling does that, by the way. And we use both sides of the body. So just so you know, from a neuroscience point of view, movement on the right side of your body is controlled by the left hemisphere of your brain. Movement on your left side of your body is controlled by the right. And we're actually engaging both hemispheres by doing activities that involve both sides of your body. 3, there's minimal muscular tension. Can you hear people in the background here? Okay, I can hear my wife talking on the phone. She's got earbuds in, and I was concerned that we could hear her.
No, you're good.
Thank God for that. I'm so relieved. Okay, it's distracting to me. Hold on.
So the juggling has a more equal left-right interaction. Like
That's right.
the yoga breath, the left-right has a more even. When I play around with this thing, I like to do this for the same reason, but it's not quite a high-performing state. This isn't quite as good because I'm spending a lot more time in the right. But what I constantly do is, okay, bring back the left to get back to equilibrium. And then I find myself in a more equilibrium, and it's freaking awesome. Just feel good doing it.
So all the activities will involve both sides of the body. That's one of the common features, including juggling, of course, and minimal muscular tension. So in studies, psychological studies of people when they're in a flow state, they're only using the muscular tension they need to do the activity. There is no superfluous muscle engagement involved. Let me illustrate that, bring it to life with a story. I built a model of high performance excavator operation in an open cut mine in central Queensland. It's a little corporate job we did. Myself and a colleague, and the top performing person operated in a flow state, and he could fill a 160-ton dump truck with coal in 2 minutes. He operated one order of magnitude more productively than any of the other excavator operators on the mine site. This guy was just amazing. Oh, by the way, he claimed he could read but not write. Okay, so he wasn't in terms of academics highly educated, but he was the most impressive excavator operator I've ever seen. Now, we're talking about these gigantic machines. So remember, a bucket will pick up 60 tons of coal, one a scoop, or 80 tons of blown up rock, which is called overburden. And this man, it was amazing. I thought he was an artist, but I couldn't say that to him because he would have misunderstood my comment.
So did he look like an artist? Did he look relaxed and all that?
Well, but no, when it came to a state, when he was operating, so I was in the cab with the guy, right? He made minimal movements with the controls, and he just used the muscles he needed to make the moves. The rest of his body was completely relaxed. He just cruised away and just dug, and just amazing. And I sat in the cabs of some of the average performers, and they were doing this, and they had tension all through their arms and their shoulders. And these guys, they happened to be men, I know, but anyway, at the end of a 12-hour shift, they were absolutely stuffed. They were physically exhausted. Whereas this guy at the end of the 12-hour shift, yeah, no worries, mate, completely at ease. So that's one of the features I found in these high performance states. People have minimal muscular tension, only the muscles they need to do the activity are activated, and everything else is relaxed. Very centered in their physiology as well. So that's one of the other features you find. All the games support that, and the attention's external. There's no self-reflection, no internal dialogue. Now, if I talk about internal dialogue, is this a familiar idea? Is this something some of you do at some times? You talk to yourself internally?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty normal human behavior, isn't it? Now, the thing is, you will have experiences where that voice, that internal dialogue is off. And it's a wonderful. It's kind of peaceful, I find it, kind of peaceful not having that infernal chatter going on. Okay. So when people are self-conscious, they're talking to themselves about themselves. God, I hope my boss, is okay with that report I delivered on Friday. That type of stuff. Yeah. I mean, we don't want to get in trouble with her. I mean, it could be in terrible trouble if that report's not right. So internal dialogue. So they learn how to switch. There's ways to switch it off, by the way. You can turn it off. And they're not thinking about themselves. They're fully 100% engaged in whatever the activity is. Okay. So those are the features. And so there are more activities that can be created than the ones that are already part of the corpus, part of the body of knowledge of NLP. And juggling is another one that's is not part of it, but will work. So, but why don't I do a demo? Because Adrian, you can juggle. Okay, so the thing that's missing from juggling is we need something to get rid of the internal dialogue, don't we? Because when you juggle, if you're just juggling, you could talk to yourself. So we want to get rid of it. And so one way to do that is to have the person speaking out loud, and they need to be taught, the content needs to be something that is meaningless or relatively meaningless. So in meditation, how they get rid of internal dialogue, some types of meditation, people have a mantra and they say the mantra out loud, and that gets rid of internal dialogue. Now, why does that work? Well, when you talk out loud, you're using the same circuitry in your brain as you use for internal dialogue. So when you talk to yourself, it's the same circuitry as when you speak out loud. So rather than talking to yourself about what happened last week and what you need to do for next week or whatever, if for example, in one of the games we have people saying out loud the alphabet, reciting the alphabet. That's pretty meaningless, isn't it? It's just the alphabet. Or you could have people doing times tables. I don't know if everybody has the same schooling I had, but when I was at school, we used to had to say the timetables out loud. Is that a common experience for most people?
I remember that in primary.
Yeah, that's
not so
primary.
much in middle school or high school.
I would hope not. I would hope it's primary. That's where we want it. Yeah, that's right. Primary school. Okay, so 1 4 is 4, 2 4s are 8, 3 4s are 12, 4 4 16, 5 4 is 20, blah, 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 blah. I mean, we've all done that, right? So I reckon what we're going to have to get rid of any internal dialogue that Adrian might have, he's quite a skilled juggler, isn't he? So we're going to have him do, Adrian?
Yeah.
What about timetables? Is that something you're comfortable with?
Yeah, go for it, whatever you like. But it's stopping me already.
Okay, I thought I'd better ask just in case, because some people are remiss in learning their timetables.
I am doing my best.
Okay, fantastic. Now, before you do this, we want to prepare a situation where you want to increase your performance. So the first question is this, Adrian. I love it. He's making some space. Good on him. Okay, so Adrian, is there a situation in your life where you like to up your performance?
Yeah, I've done some yoga teacher training recently. I'd like to be at the front of the class teaching yoga, but
Okay, so this is what we're going to have him do, okay? I'd like you to, have you actually stood up in front of a class doing yoga, teaching yoga?
I just had my first class last week.
Good, so he's had the experience. Well done. He's had the experience. So
But it was a small
fantastic.
class. It was an amateur class. The next step's big.
So we're going to use
It's uncomfortable.
Lovely. Well, at the moment, it's not going to be uncomfortable for long. Okay, you're going to have a flow state there in a few minutes. So this is what I want you to do. We're going to use perceptual positions, and look, we'll just do it, and then I'll explain what he's doing as well, so you can follow. So you've got a memory of doing this. I want you to find a space in the room that you are where you're going to represent the memory. So you choose a space in the room. Thank goodness he's got buds in so he can hear us when he walks around. Fantastic. Now what I want you to do when you're ready, in your mind, put yourself back in the memory of last week doing your first presentation to a yoga class. And won't we pin him? Here we are. We're going to pin him. There we are. And so you put yourself back, so you're looking out of your eyes, listening out of your ears, you relive the experience and the feelings, including the emotions you had in that experience at that time should come back. So you're going to remember your posture, your breathing, where your attention was in terms of your senses, what you could see, what you could hear, what you could feel, and take all the time you need. And when you are fully back in that experience, just let me know.
Yeah, I had a lot of attention on them.
Okay, good. Come on back. So you want to step away from there. If you're going to talk about it, step away from it. Okay. So we only talk about or comment about it from away from the spatial location where we mark out the memory. Now, now you can say, oh, at the time because we're going to use third person language,
Yeah,
he,
he was paying a lot of attention to the other students in the class.
okay. Well, that's probably a good thing, I would think. That's my guess. Not being a yoga teacher, that's my suspicion that paying attention to the other students in the class is probably a very good idea. Now, what I want you to do, Adrian, is I want you to walk back into that space and find out if the memory comes back. So you're going to walk back in and readopt the posture, the breathing pattern, and where your attention was, and see if that brings the memory back.
Yeah.
Good. Come on out. It's coming out. Well done. Okay. So we've marked out a spatial location for the memory. If anybody's done the NLP training, this is an example where Adrian has self-anchored the memory. We call that self-anchoring. And he's done it spatially. It's over there. Now we're ready to do the juggling. Now, in a moment, we're going to have Adrian do some juggling, and to make sure there's no internal dialogue, he's going to do one or more times tables. You probably want to do more than one because you want to do this for at least officially when I do this to people, I have them do it for about 15 to 20 minutes. But we haven't got time to do it for that long, but we might do it for 3 or 4 minutes, okay? So I'm going to get you to start juggling. And once you're juggling, then start doing the alphabet. Sorry, my apologies. The timetables out loud.
Two times 2 is 4. 4 times. Okay, yeah, that's a bit hard.
Okay, so let's give you
2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You count it even. So, sorry, I'm struggling a little bit here.
Okay, good. So that might be too challenging. So let's stop for a moment. Pause. Let's just pause for a moment. So the research into flow states, the psychological research has found that when people spontaneously activate a flow state in life, they're in a context which is challenging, but it's not too challenging and it's not lacking enough. You've got to have just the right amount of challenge. So doing the timetables might be just a little bit too much when you're juggling. So I reckon, can you count backwards in twos from 20 to 0? When you get to 0, pop back up to 20. So you get the juggling going first, and then you count backwards out loud.
From 20 down.
20 down. Get the juggling going first, though. So you want to get that smooth. It's happening.
I have a trick straight up. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12.
Good.
11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 3, 2, 4, 6, 8. This feels a lot better.
Okay, stop. Now, the point is when he says this feels a lot better, that indicates self-reflection. Okay, so
I felt shit the previous time we stopped.
I know, but we don't want to make commentary about ourselves because that's the very thing we want to get rid of. Okay, so if you're coaching somebody and they start self-reflecting, pull them aside, give them some feedback, and ask them to start again. Now, if counting from 20 to 0 in ones is too easy, it's not challenging enough. Or once it's mastered, if you want to lift up the challenge, have them count backwards from 20 in twos. So it'd be 20, 18, 16, 14, etc. So when it's going, and you've got the juggling going, then begin the counting.
20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1, 0. $20. 20, 18, 16, 14.
Okay, but you get the idea. And so this is why it might take 15 to 20 minutes for somebody. We get it to the point where they're juggling and they're doing the counting nice and smoothly. And there's no self-reflection. So how's your state, by the way? We'll pause at this point.
Pretty good.
Okay.
It's just I can't quite get
Okay, hold on. Just take that state to step back into the context, see what happens. You don't need to juggle there, but you just take the state with you. If you've got the state with you, I mean, he looks different already. You can see that. You look at his body. And you want to give it 30 seconds or so to give time for that new state to fully integrate into that context. Okay, Adrian, how's your state in there? What's it like teaching yoga now?
I've got a wonderful idea. It's kind of bringing this attitude and laughing, and I just thought, like, what happens if people leave my class and they've been laughing and we're all laughing at ourselves? It's kind of cool.
Yeah, so your state feels quite different, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm dropping the ball here. It doesn't matter. I'm making little mistakes. It doesn't matter. I'm on the ball and I'm more.
Yeah, if you drop the ball, you just pick up the ball again. That's life. Okay, that's the attitude. So very good. Okay, now come on back and then let's deconstruct all this. Now, Adrian wasn't fully in a flow state yet, right? But he did get a shift in the state Now, to get him into the flow state, we probably would have needed 10, maybe 15 minutes of juggling until
or be in person.
or being in person. I could have coached you in person. Look, Zoom's not too bad. It works okay. That's fine. But he would have needed more time for the state to develop. And then he would have taken it in. But I want you to demonstrate, even we already saw a state shift anyway, even though he hadn't got to the flow state yet. And that made a difference. Now, so if you're doing this with somebody and they can juggle, it might take them 15 minutes to activate the state fully, and then they take that flow state into the context. Now, what happens is one of the byproducts of going into a flow state is you have an improved interface between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. And so if you take a flow state, one of these content-free high performance states, into some context where you want to lift up your performance, what happens is your unconscious mind then will generate whatever resource. It could be a behavior, or it could be a particular state, it could be an understanding, it could be an attitude, whatever the resource you need for that specific situation that's going to improve your performance. It's because when you're in a flow state, you have this improved communication between the conscious and unconscious mind. So by taking that flow state into the context where you want to improve your performance, then the unconscious mind can then generate automatically the specific resource or resources you need for that situation.
When I jump into that Adrian there, in that 30 seconds that Chris gave me, the information I was seeing, I was also feeling and experiencing. And that 30-second experience include the visual, right? That 30-second experience then, or the minute or two getting there, that experience is worth whatever it takes for me to succeed. And sometimes it's worth lots of money, but sometimes it's worth lots of lives. Like the amount of value I got on that. So thanks, Chris, because I really appreciate being able to do that process with you. If I just did it by myself, I wouldn't have gone as deep. A lot of valuable information I get from that 30 seconds. And that's a lot more valuable than we can get in half an hour talking about it.
Yeah, and I would prefer to actually have had a bit more time to do this fully. But even partially, getting partway there made a difference, okay? And it will make a difference. Now, the thing about the particular game, first of all, Adrian, thank you so much. The thing about the games we have for building what we call the alphabet game, the NASA game, and one of the ball games, those games all need a coach. Because the risk is people start trying to adjust and give themselves feedback while they're doing the task. And that defeats the whole purpose, because that's self-reflection. The beautiful thing is, sorry?
I was just thinking, I'm in the third year of my degree and I'm at placement at a middle school/high school.
Yep.
So I think it was the ABC game that I was doing with this boy.
Yeah.
And kept on adding things. He kept on adding things. And from where he was to where he was now, there wasn't that much of a difference.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. So what as you were using the alphabet game? Okay, so you've been exposed to some new code, NLP.
I think I said that last time, but yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I just want to say fantastic. Okay. Beautiful. So
sometimes it doesn't work because we don't work. I remember doing some NLP training and anchoring someone, and it was terrible. But sometimes it's us. Sometimes we celebrate something.
Okay, so Jasmine, you kept adding conditions, making it more challenging for him. Is that right?
No, it was the other way around. He got the gist of he got the gist of it. He was like, why don't we add this? Why don't we add a little bit? What if we? So I think we ended up doing how many circles, jumping how many times. I was busy after that.
Okay, did it improve? Did it build a content-free high performance state for him?
Not enough time. It did change his state.
Yeah, it did change the state. So you can get a state change probably in 3 or 4 minutes. But typically you need probably 15 minutes as a rule of thumb. It can be up to 20 minutes. 15 to 20 minutes is enough time to get the adjustments in the physiology and so on for the state to fully activate. So it's probably a time thing. Now, the thing about the alphabet game, the NASA game and the ball game, you do need a coach. Now, the great thing about juggling, Adrian could do this by himself because when he drops the ball, that's the feedback. And he just picks up the ball and starts again. So if he drops the ball when juggling, that's the feedback. He doesn't need a coach. So that would be one activity combined with some auditory process. Like might do the alphabet out loud, could be times tables. I don't know. He could recite nursery rhymes for that matter, whatever. But the content of the auditory needs to be something that's pretty much meaningless. By adding that in, the juggling becomes a really good vehicle for building a content-free high-performance state or a flow state. And that's something you can do on your own if you know how to juggle. Now, if you don't know how to juggle, there are plenty of YouTube videos of people that teach the basics of juggling.
I did this with a CTO in Europe. It was like 2 a.m. in the morning my time, but it was there 2 a.m. in the morning. It was a really weird time zone. But I used a bit of this for him, but we used imaginary juggling balls and a bit of hypnosis, but we'll leave that for another time. So even if they don't know, you can, but it takes a higher level of skill to get someone a high performance of hypnosis over the phone. But you can get there.
Yeah. And so, a person could learn to juggle and be able to do this by themselves. And there are some I've seen them. There's some good YouTube videos on how to learn to juggle. So that's something one could do by themselves. The other games, which we haven't really described, the alphabet game or NASA or the ball game, you do need a coach.
What do you think about this, Chris? Because I know some of the guys do martial arts.
Okay, so I don't know much, and I can't comment about the game, but all I can say is the features of an activity that work is an activity where you use minimal muscular tension. Your attention needs to be visual and auditory external. Your attention's on the external world. You need to have some auditory process put in there to get rid of internal dialogue. And so something which you are saying out loud, which is relatively meaningless. You could even use a mantra, would work. Reciting the alphabet, etc. We talked about that before. So you want to add that piece in, and something that uses both sides of the body. And the other thing to remember when you do it, you want to make sure you're centered in your physiology, and the activity needs to stimulate the opening of the peripheral vision. So when you juggling stimulates your peripheral vision. When you do the alphabet game, even though I haven't described it, the movements you make when you're doing the alphabet game stimulate peripheral vision. The ball game, you need a partner to toss the ball, to catch the ball and toss it back to you. And the way we do it in a way that stimulates peripheral vision.
When I start juggling, I'm watching the ball and then I drop the ball and my eyes are open and I'm mainly just looking up here at the balls and I'm not looking down here. My eyes and that are wide open, taking in the entire room.
Yeah.
Takes a bit of practice to do that, but we should be able to practice that. We do a lot of focusing in today. We've got to practice that. What do you call it?
So you're opening your peripheral vision by doing that. It's great. Now, Now you can, with a bit of practice, we do some drills on one of our units on our program, attention drills where we actually train people to be able to shift from an internal attention to external attention, how to open up your peripheral vision and so, how to turn off your internal dialogue. So you can mold your attention and your physiology, that's the way you're standing, the way you're moving, and so on, to change to actually get yourself into a flow state anyway. Um, um, I'll give you an example for internal dialogue. Have you ever had the experience where you just like to turn the internal dialogue off? Ever had that experience? Yeah. So, um, I remember quite a long time ago, but one time I was trying to get to sleep and I had this infernal internal dialogue going on. I'm running movies of what happened during the day and I'm having a chat to myself about it and I couldn't turn it off. Okay. And that interfered with my ability to get to sleep. So there's an example of internal dialogue operating in a context where you don't want it. So, so there may be times and places where you want to turn off your internal dialogue. Here's one of a number of ways to do it. Um, can you talk to yourself? Well, yeah, I know you can. Talk to yourself for a moment right now. And now bring your attention back here. Thank you. Well done. Now, this is what I'd like you to do. Take your tongue and just take the tip of your tongue and lightly push it against your bottom teeth. Just very lightly push them against your bottom teeth. And then have the tongue relax into the bottom of your mouth. Now, put yourself in a situation, so just talk to yourself for a moment. And then once your dialogue is going, take your tongue, push it against the back of your lower teeth very gently, and then just relax the tongue so it drops and relaxes into the bottom of your mouth. And note what happens to your inner dialogue. Now, how that works is when people talk to themselves, there are motor movement patterns. In fact, there are micro movements in your tongue. So when you talk out loud, of course, your tongue moves. When you talk to yourself, there are micro movements. So if you can relax your tongue and just drop it down into the bottom of your mouth by just gently touching the inside of the back of your lower teeth, then you're interrupting that motor movement that's necessary for inner dialogue.
I feel like that's vaguely familiar,
Good. Well, that's lovely.
but for me personally, when I was younger, I was in the choir. One of the ways they taught us to sing was keep your tongue to your teeth while moving. I don't know how to explain it, but like to do it better.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, that's that by if all movement stops, so if you relax the tongue, that interrupts the motor movement. That should turn off the internal dialogue. That's the theory behind it. And um, but that's worth experimenting with. So play with that, and can I get an indication who that worked for? Can I get some indication from people? Okay.
For me, it partly works, but I can turn it back on again. So it goes off for a moment, and then I start to think again.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear Chico Death, whatever
Okay.
other people thought of it.
Okay. So here's a little bit more. Let's go a little bit more background on this. So anybody a parent? Anybody here a parent? Or an uncle or an auntie? I'm an uncle. Okay.
I'm an auntie.
Okay. So if you've been around them when they're 2.5, 3 years of age, remember that age? As if your children are old enough to have got to that age, you might be okay. So very new parent. Okay. So this is something to note for the future. Okay, for some of you, they're running around and let's say they fall over, scrape the knee. They usually run to mum or dad in tears, and then there's the family ritual. The wound is cleaned up and kissed better or whatever the family ritual is. And then the child's running around 5 minutes later as if nothing happened, okay? There's a lack of self-consciousness. And then what happens this is developmentally, when we have enough mastery of language, what happens, we start to name the world. So we use nouns, don't we, to name the world? Names, nouns. So we focus on screen, okay? Fan, partner. I can still hear even though she's outside. um, rug, okay, lamp, okay. And what happens so if you just, if you're in a dialogue, just name something in the room where you are. Name 2 or 3 objects for a moment. If you could kindly do that. Where's your visual attention go when you name an object? Do you look at it? That's the question. Do you look at the object when you name it? So you look around and go, lamp. Or you might spot it first before naming it. But typically, we name the world and we use our foveal vision. That does focus. We use our foveal vision when we're in a dialogue, when we have names. So you typically get a reduction in peripheral vision. So for those of you who have had young children between the ages of 2.5 or 3, when you look at them in the way, look at how they're organized when they're running around. Sure, their peripheral vision is more open than adults. Let's just put it that way. So what happens is there's a relationship between internal dialogue and foveal vision. So another way. So what you can do to open your peripheral vision and to switch off your internal dialogue at the same time, what you do, each helps the other. So pick a focal point, that's foveal vision, soften your vision, drop your tongue down, and then just do this to stimulate peripheral vision. And now we're going to split your attention a little more. I'd like you to do it again, but this time have a sense of centering yourself in your body. So it's like a plane that divides the left side from the right side of your body, sends through until you find your center of balance as you open your peripheral vision and drop the tongue at the same time. That's a lot to do at once, I know. So if you can center and open your peripheral vision as you drop the tongue, that is even better at turning off your inner dialogue. So those are some things you can play with, which I think are useful. They're just useful drills. You could play with each piece separate. You could play with just dropping the tongue. So you talk to yourself, drop the tongue, that should switch off. Find out, does it switch off? You're in a dialogue. Separate exercise, center yourself, open your peripheral vision. So soft vision, so you pick a focal point and then soften. So it's not that reduces foveal by softening the vision and open your peripheral vision. Practice doing that, then put the two things together. Drop the tongue, open your peripheral vision at the same time while centering yourself. And then if you find yourself, let's say you're in a situation where you're talking to yourself when you'd rather not, let's say you'd rather be going to sleep and you're having a chat to yourself, I would stand up actually to do it. I would stand up, drop the tongue, center, open peripheral vision, turn off the internal dialogue and get back into bed. Now this is thinking of another thing you could do as an exercise. Is really useful to start to become aware of what you're doing with your attention inside different states that you experience. So the example I just used, it might be, I don't know what you would call the state, but let's say it's a state where you have insomnia, a somniac state, I suppose you could call it. And you're talking to yourself. Well, there we are. That's worth knowing. Running movies and talking to yourself. So that's a place where you might apply it. I remember one time I got really angry with somebody, and afterwards I was still feeling angry, and I was talking to myself rather loudly about the other person. I had quite a conversation with myself. It wasn't useful, but I was chatting to myself. Had a lot of internal dialogue. So that would be an example. If I wanted to help break that state and change the state, drop the tongue, center self, open peripheral vision would be one way to do it. Not the only way to do it, but one way to do it. So as you travel from one state to another, and by the way, you go through a variety of different states every day, start to become aware. Where is your attention? Is it an external world, or is it internal? And it can be mixed. I might have my attention visually external, auditorily external, but kinesthetic internal. Or I could be in a state where I'm running internal images. So I'm not aware, I'm not conscious of what's around me visually, but I'm very conscious of the imagery I'm making. That'd be visual internal, wouldn't it? I could be running a movie and it could have a soundtrack. No internal dialogue, but a movie with an auditory soundtrack. It could have music. It could have a voiceover. Okay. Somebody else's voice, that is. Get the idea? So in different states, your attention is going to be organized differently. Starting to become aware of how your attention is organized in a particular state, because if you know what you're doing with your attention, that awareness is the first step. The second step is then you develop choice in terms of how you go about changing your state. I mean, if I said to you, I know some of you are overseas. Has everybody seen an iconic picture of the Sydney Harbour, which has the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge? I mean, I think it's iconic enough that most people from different countries have seen that. Okay, so can you imagine that? Or recall it? Recall a picture of that? If you can, well done. The Australian tourist propaganda is working. Now, change the image.
Just across the ditch.
It's just across the ditch. It is. It's a short flight, 2.5 hours, isn't it? 2.5 flight, Auckland or Wellington or Hamilton. I think you do it from Christchurch nowadays as well. But anyway, across to lovely Sydney. Now, Get rid of that image and now remember an image from your hometown or city, an iconic one. So if I said, think of the Harbour Bridge, you can do that. Think of an iconic one from your hometown or city now. Can you do that? Now, how long does it take you to switch from one image to another? Fraction of a second? Now, auditory. If you're lucky enough to have a partner, or say you're a parent, you've got a child. So remember either your partner or your child's voice, or if you're not married or you don't have a partner or you don't have children, remember a friend's voice. Can you remember what their voice sounds like? I now think of a different person's voice. Recall the sound of another friend's voice or another child's voice or another, I won't say another partner, hopefully you've got one. So you can change from one, recalling the sound of one person's voice to another person's voice, what, fraction of a second, right? You can do that fairly quickly, can't you? Okay. Now, I'd like you to be aware of a sensation in your body. It's going to be in a particular location. It might have a particular temperature. It might have a particular pressure. It might be moving or it might be still. Can you change any of the qualities in the sensation? So if it's a particular temperature, you might cool it down or warm it up. If it's moving at a particular frequency, particular rhythm, you might speed it up or slow it down. If it's got particular pressure, you might increase the pressure or lighten the pressure. It's got a particular texture, you might change the texture. How long does it take to change one of the qualities? Now, does it take longer to change one of those qualities compared with just changing the mental image? Sydney Harbour Bridge, say, or Opera House, and some iconic image from your hometown or city. One person's voice, a friend or family, another person's voice. Take a sensation, change the sensation.
That was tricky for me.
Most people. So the kinesthetic system has more lag. Typically, the visual system is the fastest one to change. And then the next fastest is auditory. And the one that's slowest for most people is kinesthetic. And that's a comment about how we're organized. Okay. However, ideally, you'd like to have choice about all that, or be able to change in any of those systems, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Number one, you want to have choice about that. Two, you can develop greater flexibility in changing different aspects, let's say kinesthetically, like temperature, pressure, texture, movement, rhythm, tempo. Visually, size of the image, still or moving, bright or dull, change the brightness level, 2D or 3D, direction of lighting. You add a cut, you could put a hue through it, a particular color, as if you're wearing sunglasses. Or change it to another hue as we're changing, let's say, from rose-colored glasses to a cool blue, or to a yellow or whatever. Okay. It's nice to do, it's useful to develop flexibility in changing those components. We call them submodalities in NLP. Those qualities within representational systems. Can you play a piece of music? Can you turn the volume up? Can you turn the volume down? Can you bring a particular instrument into the foreground and have the rest of the instruments go into the background? You do things like that, etc. And can you change your inner dialogue? Can you turn it down? Can you change its location from one spatial location to another? Can you change its overall pitch, the tonality up or the tonality down, etc.? Those are just basic sensory representational system drills, which I think are useful for any kids to have. So, but part of it comes back to, where is your attention? In any state, where is your attention? If you know how your attention is organized, then you can shift how you're using your attention to change your state. So these types of things can help you over time to develop high performance states. You become familiar with how your attention is organized when you're in a high performance state, so you can replicate that. One more example. Anybody ever had trouble getting to sleep? This is a common human problem, by the way. I'll admit it, I've had this problem, you know. If I get too much intellectual stimulation at night before I go to bed, that sometimes causes a problem. So I don't like having, you know, if I'm going to read a book, read something light and nothing too intellectually stimulating for me. Anyway, I thought I've had enough of this. I had a couple of nights bad sleep, and I thought, I've had enough of it. I'm going to do something about it. And I became aware of how my attention was organized when I wasn't sleeping, when I was having trouble getting to sleep. So pictures are running fast for me, like movies, fast moving movies. Okay. And I'm having a hyped up, the qualities of the internal dialogue was pretty hyped up. Okay. So I'm excited and interested in the content of my mental imagery rather than tired and sleepy. So sometimes we have a cognitive process that is operating inside a context where it's not appropriate for what we want at that time. Sleep's important. So what I did was this. On a different occasion, so sometimes I like to sleep in on the weekends or if I'm on holiday. Have you ever done that? Had the leisure to sleep in. You don't have to get up to go to work. You can sleep in. So if you had the experience, you wake up in the morning, it's on the weekend or you're on holiday, you start to wake up and then you realize you don't need to get up. You don't have to go to work. It's the weekend. And then you find yourself drifting back to sleep again. So you had that experience where you start to wake up, realizing you've got more time to sleep, and you go back to sleep. Has everybody had that experience? So all I did, I took a mental inventory of how my attention and my physiology, as posture and movement in my body, breathing pattern, so my sensory attention, breathing pattern, and my posture is like at that point as I'm about to drop off back to sleep. Okay. And I memorized it. I made sure that I was consciously very familiar with where my attention is, my breathing, posture, areas of tension and relaxation in my body. Okay, physiology. Now I know what it is for me. I'm lying in a particular way in bed, and my attention, kinesthetically, I have a warm, fuzzy sensation around my forehead, just slightly forward of it. Is the sense for that's for me. It might be different for you. And my visual attention, I'm aware of the type of images I have when I dream. And my breathing is very slow and even. So once I had memorized that, the next time I was a little hyped up and couldn't get to sleep, all I did is I put myself into the same position in bed, posture, adopted the slow, even breathing. And for me, I replicated the kinesthetic sensations that then helped me reactivate the dreamlike images. And then, boom.
A slightly different variant is to do that just activity there and then perhaps move across to another time you've fallen asleep.
Yeah.
And maybe across to a time you were daydreaming on a lounge chair or falling asleep or at the side of a pool. And I take myself through different memories of places where I lie down and fall asleep. So my brain starts to loop through this falling asleep as I take inventory and note.
That's a lovely thing to do. So you can do it for more than one example. And if you run through from one example to another, the key is if you're familiar with how your attention, your physiology, areas of tension, relaxation, posture, your breathing pattern, if you're familiar with how that's organized and how your senses are organized, could be more internal images. By becoming familiar with that, you can replicate it. That's the key. You can replicate that when you want it, and that will reactivate the state. And yes, you can also put yourself back in the memories if you want to. And you could do a sequence of memories. This is variation. You could do a sequence of memories where you have already previously taken an inventory for those different memories. So this is where developing your awareness of how you're organized is useful. Just an example. And it's the same for flow states. So back to flow states is if you become aware of how your attention is organized. Now, we have some generic ways that people are organized in flow states, just to summarize what we talked about earlier. Attention external, no internal dialogue, no self-reflection, minimal muscular tension, only the necessary and sufficient tension in your musculature to do the movement or whatever the task is that you're doing. You're using both sides of your body. Typically, any movement is in an even rhythm. And all the NLP and UK games that are built for activating these states have those features built into the activity. So that's why I'm able to say that juggling will work, because juggling has most of the features of how attention's organized, all except something to take care of internal dialogue. And that's where you can do timetables or something out loud to take care of that. So in the alphabet game, people say the alphabet out loud as they do the rest of the activity. In the NASA game, people are saying up, down, left, right repeatedly by making particular eye movements. Then your partner throws in calculations for you to do, which you don't do consciously. It pops the answer straight from your own conscious. But anyway, that's another story. But you're saying it out, up, down, left, right. It's like a mantra. That works very well. In the ball games, we typically have people counting backwards in twos. But it doesn't have to be like that. As long as there's some auditory activity that's out loud, that takes care of it. So you've got the game shape your attention, and there's something to take care of internal dialogue. There's some auditory external thing you're doing that takes care of internal dialogue. And and if you know that, you could create a game that will build a flow state. Okay. But for most of the games, you need a coach to prevent self-reflection. All except the juggling is the only thing I know so far that works without a coach. Okay, any questions about this?
Yeah, I'm going to rattle on if I can, just for a little bit.
Sure.
One key thing you mentioned is drills. So this is my old manual, about 300 pages. Harold, Was that a pretty decent manual and time in Bali? But I was just looking through the subject, the table of my talk, table of contents here. Now, one of the best NLP books I've ever seen is Chris's The Field Guide of NLP. And I remember about 10 years before I met him, some high performance coach told me, "Hey, don't do any NLP, don't do any of that stuff. If you are, make sure you do it with this guy." And she said Chris Collingwood in Sydney, and I was like, and I told her, like, that's the NLP I'm talking about. She's like, "Oh, the real thing." Okay. Now, but the thing you mentioned drills. So I don't have the drills in here, and we do have some drills. So the original NLP was a lot longer. When we were together in Bali, we did it for like 10 days. Original training was much longer. Drills. Chris, please, can you just give us a couple more minutes? Doing drills, because you've given us something here, and you see, guys, I've made it different. Chris gave us an example, but first I learned his way and did it his way safely. But then I've made a couple of the activities more novel to myself. So I don't practice hypnosis all the time with people. Sometimes I practice it checking out at the supermarket. Yeah. I try to integrate these things with my life. So I make my own drills. So Chris, can you talk about how we can make drills?
Sure. So a lot of NLP trainers are fixated with techniques. But I prefer the idea of drills, little exercises for self-mastery. So the sort of things we've talked about tonight are drills. Things like one drill would be practice taking. See, what you might do is you might set something up on your, I don't know, your smartwatch or your smart device, your phone. And you might set it for a couple of hours. And then when it goes off, the moment it goes off, you do a quick note of how's my posture, what's my breathing pattern, where's my attention visually, auditorily, and kinesthetically, and which for those different senses, attentions are more external. Is it external or internal? Am I talking to myself, or is it an absence of internal dialogue? So that you learn, you start building up an awareness of how your attention is. So that would be a drill, as an example.
Adding your emotional state, so then you end up with a logbook where you're practicing taking a stock take of yourself, and you write, maybe you label your state, happiness, anger, and stuff. Yeah. And you can see patterns in that as well later on.
So now the problem that people have now, I think your emotions, you want to take an inventory for different emotions that you experience. Now, keep in mind, emotions are a subset of states. Emotions are states. They're just states that are common enough in a culture to be named, that's all. So in a particular culture with a language.
You guys get that? You get that? The emotion or the name like happiness is just the label we've put on a particular state. Which is being commonly accepted by the majority of people. Doesn't mean the state's right. It doesn't mean everyone does anxiety exactly the same. People have a lot of variance with these things.
That's right. There's a lot of variance on those things. So the thing is the point is you're always in a state anyway. You're always in a state. So there'll be some states you experience, many states actually, that you don't have a name for. So we want you to start to become aware of the various states you inhabit and how your attentions are organized, and whether that state's working for you in the context where it occurs, and does it support the outcomes you have in that context. So you start to test it for usefulness. The problem is that when you're in a state, you're not likely to think about, oh yeah, it's time for me to take an inventory of the state, because you're in a state. Does that make sense? So that's why if you do something like you set up your phone,
is there a random timer app?
Adrian, let me finish the framing. Hold on. So if you set up a timepiece to just go off 2 or 3 hours time, whatever, then at that point, that's your trigger that reminds you to do an inventory of your state. Then you can find out what you're doing in that state. So you can do things like that to start to build that awareness in. However, the problem is most people, when you're in a state, you don't think about doing an inventory because you're fully embodied in whatever the state is that you're doing, that you're experiencing. So that's the challenge. But the idea is that the drill itself is when you take an inventory of how your posture, your breathing, your musculature, your attention, which is senses, is organized in a particular state, you're building up that awareness so that that's the foundation for then being able to change your state to adjust or refine the state you're in to serve some outcome you have, whatever it might be. So it makes sense. So that's a drill. And
Yeah, anyone know an app that does that? Does anyone happen to know an app that does that automatically? But now I can do that on my friend's phone. So next time my mate visits, I'm going to get his phone and I'm going to set an alarm and just call it state check. I'm just going to set a couple of alarms on my mate's phone saying state check, so he doesn't know when it's going to go. Just randomly throughout the day, it'll go state check, and you can do a state check.
Hey, it's easy enough.
You can do it on my phone.
By the way, it's easy enough. You could build it. I think nowadays, just use.
Oh, probably get a bot.
Just use Claude and have Claude create an app for you. Write one.
So random timer goes off. Take a minute. State check. Note the things about your emotions, your attention, how you're breathing, your physiology.
Yeah.
Go through your body, check it all out. You do that 2-3 times a day for a week.
And you develop greater awareness, and that is the foundation for developing choice about it. Okay. Now we've got, frankly, hundreds of drills for different things. But I think that in terms of skill building, in my view, my opinion, strongly held, that's the basis. That's the basis for skill building. And from an NLP point of view, I'm more interested in, first and foremost, in developing those skills for myself, because then that's going to support me in working with other people. So from an ethical point of view, I personally believe that if I'm going to take a client through a process, I better have been through it myself and I better be able to do it for myself before I'm working with a client, if that makes sense. I think I see that's a personal position. But it makes you a better coach if you're coaching. And frankly, if you're going to learn NLP or parts of NLP, you're going to learn that. Why not do it for yourself, first and foremost? I like having, once again, personal opinion, I like having choice. I like having choice about my behavior. I want to have choice about my states. I like having choice. And, people talk about in the mental health world. The reason I know a little bit about this is my wife's a psychiatric nurse. I hear stories. I hear some great stories, actually. Some of them are horrific and some of them are just fascinating. And the thing is, one of the big problems a lot of people have, according to my wife, is emotion. And the term they use is emotional regulation, poor emotional regulation. There was a video floating around about 8 months ago. Somebody didn't get what he wanted. He was in an international airport in Thailand, I think it's in Bangkok, and he threw a tantrum. He was going through customs and quarantine. He threw a tantrum, and there's this grown man, he looked like he was in his 40s, on the floor, and he did the whole thing. You ever seen a kid do a tantrum? He did the whole thing on the floor. He got down on the floor, threw a tantrum. And while he was throwing his tantrum, a little package, a clear plastic bag, fell out of his pocket. It just happened to have cocaine in it. I mean, so there's an example of a poor emotional regulation that had anybody with half a brain cell would have seen a particular possible consequence. I believe he is in a jail at the moment, a Thai jail. But the point is, people can have complete choice about their states if they want to, and those games will build high performance flow states, and juggling's a great one. It really is, because you can teach that to yourself on YouTube. Pretty straight. Now, put a little bit of work in for it, but anything worth doing typically takes a bit of effort. Okay, so we were just looking at one aspect of one of the things that Brenda found, working with people of genius, and we talked about flow states. Now, I know you haven't actually learned how to do any of these games, but we saw a demo with in terms of juggling. Any questions about any of this?
While we take some questions, Chris, can you flick up that slideshow again, showing your strategies? If you could do that. Now, next week, Darko is going to be here. Darko's not here this week. He hosts a lot of these. He's going to be here next week talking about professional coaching and using NLP. I think I'll be with Darko. We use the NLP in a coaching context, but you can take this NLP and take it into an engineering context, teaching a classroom context. You can take what we teach and the NLP teaches into so many more areas of life. But each one of these strategies, have a look at these strategies here, the strategies of genius. All of these strategies give us more choice. And one of the key themes behind Chris's training, I believe, and let me know if I'm wrong, Chris, is you're giving people the skills to create more choice, really more choice in their life. And it might stem from some awareness, but this is all just creating choice. So if you wanted to be world class, or if you wanted to be a professional athlete or whatever it is, the strategies help you get there, and they give you the choice and more freedom to get there. But being part of a cool community and having some good people, we get to cheer you on, see your results, and reunite and come back. Thank you very much for a beautiful session, Chris. Have I said anything? That's all right. Anyone else want to ask questions of Chris while we're here? Please do.
There's one in the sidebar.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you do like 15 minutes of juggling to get into flow state.
So you're wondering
If you do 15 minutes of juggling to get into flow states.
yeah. Do I do that?
Yeah.
No, I use one. I get my wife to run me through one of the games. I get her to be my coach. So I'm married to an NLP trainer.
That's
So
lovely.
yeah, and look, we do nice things for each other. You know, it's personal opinion, I think it's great being married to another trainer. And tomorrow we're about to have our 34th wedding anniversary tomorrow.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's lovely. So yeah, I haven't learned to juggle, but I usually use the ball game or the alphabet chart, the alphabet game.
So do you have like a daily routine for that, or?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Do I have a daily routine for that? I really don't need that anymore. I've got pretty good choice about my states. I mean, the last time I actually had a mate take me through one of the games, was the ball game actually, as I was doing a presentation to quite a large group, and what I'm used to is working with groups, 10 to 30 people in size, and I found myself feeling a little nervous, which is not usual for me. So I thought I really want to do well with this. I want to sway the whole group. So I got one of my mates. We went out the back. I just happened to carry. I carry some balls. I carry some juggling balls in my case, my briefcase. So I take them with me anyway. because, you know, there might be somebody, I might need to take somebody else for a game. And if you've got some balls, you can just run the ball game for it pretty quickly. So I had my mate run me through, make sure I was in a high performance flow state before going on stage. And, but generally, I can just adjust my attention and be in the state I want to be in most of the time. Hey, like any other human, occasionally I do find myself in an unresourceful state.
Just going to add in there, I went to a random speed dating thing. I went to a random speed dating thing, and just as I got there, the reason I did it because it was free. I was there, and I just kind of went, and I just went there, and I just go like, what's a good, what do I want? Do I want confidence? How do I want to perform? And I don't have to go confidence like an NLP anchor confidence. Now, thanks to what Chris is saying, right now I've done the drills. I get to an awkward situation, speed dating, and it's not awkward. I can just jump in a state like instantly.
You can shift your attention and change your state very, very quickly.
Takes practice and good teaching.
That's right. It's doing the drills is what builds the skill.
But getting closer to Chris is getting closer to the heart and core of the NLP, like the deepest of it. I've done training with numerous other creators, and what Chris actually has in the certificate is not a lot of fireworks, and it's not like glossy. It takes work and it takes discipline.
Yeah.
But I've never seen such a complete program with drills and all. But anyway, back to the questions. Someone asked.
Let me just comment on that. We got a postgraduate program. It's a graduate certificate. It's about 450 hours in terms of work. So it's equivalent to 6 months full time at university. On average, students need about 18 months to do the course, and they're putting in about. The minimum, as I say, if you put in 10 hours a week in terms of the online materials, and then come along to our Tuesday and Thursday night Zoom sessions for practice and also for doing assessments. So we do practices on Tuesday nights, assessments on Thursday. And that way you get the practice in. That takes about 18 months. So it's very, very comprehensive. And frankly, people need to put the work in or they're not able to pass the assessments. That's just the way it is. And but people are pretty keen because you know, they're learning skills that they can take out and test in the world and apply in their lives. That's the important thing. But yeah, sure. Any other questions?
Does anyone in the group need 7 a.m. NLP training? Does any of the students need it at 7 o'clock? Because, you know, Jamaica in the Middle East want to do a session and they're like 7 o'clock in the morning, Queensland, 6 a.m. Do you have anyone that might want to do training at that time?
Me?
Yeah. Any other students? Karina might come on. Okay. Sorry, just thinking ahead, Chris. We've got a couple of other people that Ray's not here tonight. They're pretty busy where he is.
Okay, so you've got some people in that time zone who would like to also meet up with some more people, is that right?
Yeah, 7 a.m. Monday mornings. I'm going to start with the two that have been coming here. I'm going to do something for them too, but I was thinking if anyone else in the group wanted to do it. Apologies, guys. It's a bit of admin, just some extra classes we like to run.
No, you're good.
Well, there we are. That's a great opportunity. If people don't mind being up at 7 a.m., that's a great opportunity to get some more practice in.
I know you won't, but I can. I'm doing mornings and going to bed soon. So you might also have classes on early Monday morning. So this is looking better and better, Chris.
Okay, fantastic.
Shut up, Adrian. I'm going to shut up totally. Please, someone else ask a question of Chris if you like to. Otherwise, we'll see you next week with Dark Coach talking about coaching.
One more story. Sorry, two more stories about flow states, okay? So one of my students from Trainers Training, so we don't do it very often, but every now and again we've done a Trainers Training. We've also had John Grinder as one of our trainers. And we had one particular one, one of these people, one of these fellows, he told me afterwards, he was over the moon. His son By the way, this guy is, I won't name names, but he's an actor, he's an Australian actor, reasonably well known. Okay, he's he's a nice guy, and his son was in gymnastics championships, national championships, and he took one look at his son because he's NLP trained. Went, the boy's not in a good state. He's not in an ideal state for this. So he took him out to a back room, and they found some butcher's paper, and he had a pen in his briefcase. So they knocked up an alphabet chart. He ran his son for 15 minutes through the alphabet game until he could calibrate that his son was in a high performance flow state, sent him back out. And he won his division, his age and weight division. By the way, his son has since been a star for Cirque du Soleil. What I love is in Australia, you can do all sorts of degrees. His boy did a degree in circus performance at some university in Melbourne, down in Victoria, state of Victoria. Isn't that fantastic? You can do a degree in circus performance in Australia. Love that. But anyway, but he ran the alphabet chart, made sure his boy is in a high performance state, a flow state, and then he was ready to perform. And one other story, because back to the question I had earlier, I don't do it daily because I don't need to, but one of my former students does a game to build a high performance state every morning before work, before he starts work. And he's quite an amazing guy. He's a technology guy. He's been involved with helping to set up, I think it's 8 now, what I call them, startup hubs or something. But he's been involved with 8 of them, joint ventures, involved universities in these hubs and so on. And I'm not at liberty to say who he's working for at the moment, but he's working for a fairly important organization, and he has been using AI to help them automate all their offices, and doing some great work there. But he would do one every morning just before starting work, and I'm like really proud of him. I think that's a smart thing to do, good on him.
Boom! You made it here! Good on you. Make sure you click the subscribe button below and check out the playlist at the end. If you'd like to come along to our Sunday sessions where we host a live, free Q&A for our students and members, you're welcome. I'll see you there.